securing the southern border has become a major sticking point for lawmakers to keep the government funded. So how can both sides come to an agreement before early March? For more on this, we want to bring in our political panel on the Hill this morning. Siobhan Hughes is the congressional correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, and Jesse Byrnes is the senior editor of the eponymous of this program, the Hill newspaper. Thank you both for joining us. Donald Trump has been talking more about the border of late, and we have these negotiations going on about the border. There has been some reporting that apparently Trump world is not exactly thrilled that a deal on the border can be imminent. So what should we expect here? Are Republicans going to come to the table, or could the presidential politics overshadow all of this?
The presidential politics are already inserting their head, and you felt that intently in the House last week. Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, telling reporters, everybody get in line behind Trump, and even Elise Stefanik, a member of leadership, voting against her own speaker, her own party CR, on the basis of not doing enough on the border.
So, Jesse, how do they get this done if they seem to be very, very close in the Senate right now? And the House is going to be a dead letter office on this? We're not going to get a border deal.
It's very difficult. Trump basically threw a grenade into the House this week when he came out and said no compromise. House Republicans are going to be staunchly opposed to this because they are worried about getting primary. They're worried about going against Trump. They don't want him to criticize him. So House Republicans very much still are going to be opposed to this. But the big thing here is that Ukraine funding is not going to come through because they can't get this border deal done. And so that's really where the rubber meets the road if they can't get this through.
Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, might be the poster boy. Be careful what you ask for right now, because as Speaker, he's getting a pretty good taste of what Kevin McCarthy dealt with in that job, in that right now, not only are there these rumblings that his own speakership might be in trouble, but he can't seem to be able to deliver the House on things that they're able to agree on. So they got the CR through. What is the prospect moving forward for Johnson if he is constantly under this threat of losing his job if even one member of his own caucus decides they've had enough?
Well, and they can only afford 2 defections right now, right? So if 3 Republicans vote against any of these bills, they're dead in the water. And so for Johnson, it's this balancing act. He's already twice now sided with Democrats and the views of most Republicans to get a CR passed. They agreed to the spending caps at the end of last year, things that McCarthy did right before he was ousted for the same exact things. And so for Johnson, he's in a rock and a hard place. He has to get through this next 6 weeks. At the same time, you have this primary playing out in a couple days in New Hampshire. You have Trump on the campaign trail saying, don't do this, and that makes Johnson's life much more difficult.
At the same time, though, people have to wonder, what is the White House doing about the border? Because there are things they can do, that, besides just sitting on their hands and waiting for the Congress to act. Has the administration heard these stories that are coming out of Texas right now, of these floods of people coming over the border?
The administration has heard these stories, and the rhetoric coming from even President Biden's mouth is very strong, but the devil is going to be in the details, and we're not going to really know until that Senate package is released, maybe as soon as this week.
All right, as we just heard from Shannon at the bottom of this half hour, there are a lot of things in play in New Hampshire right now. You mentioned how some of it's affecting the politics on the Hill right now. Is Donald Trump, in effect, the de facto leader of the congressional Republicans right now, even though he's not in office, even though he's a presidential candidate? The powers that be in the House and the senior House leadership on the Republican side really do seem to be following his lead.
They do, and Speaker Johnson even said this week, he speaks to former President Trump regularly. It's very clear they're getting their marching orders from him because it's very likely that he will be the Republican nominee, and there's a chance he could be president again. And so they're already trying to not alienate that relationship. And we've even seen some Democrats come out this week and accuse Republicans of not wanting to get a border deal done because they think it would help Biden in his electoral prospects. And so essentially, accusing them of playing politics and trying to influence the election by not agreeing to a border deal that senators are working on a bipartisan basis.
And Siobhan, there's been a concern throughout the last 4 months as the Israeli-Gaza war against Hamas has continued about escalation. We have had several instances over the last couple of years where the United States outside of that area has had to launch military strikes. Is the Congress right now behind the White House as they set to put out these fires that appear to be going up against U.S. forces that are stationed in that region right now. Is there at least support and unanimity about that?
Well, I think the preference would be for a lot of this to settle down, and you're seeing the White House respond to that. The Wall Street Journal has a story out today about the U.S. now pushing for some type of phased end to the conflict in Israel and Gaza.
But that seems to be nowhere with Benjamin Netanyahu right now. Does that make President Biden appear weak in the relationship right now? If the leader of the United States says, hey, look, the way out of this is a Palestinian state, and the prime minister in Israel just says no.
Yeah, and you're seeing Democrats in both chambers come out and say this needs to happen. We need a two-state solution, and there's going to be pressure, rising pressure, there already is, on President Biden from progressives to actually lean on Netanyahu and say, listen, this needs to be the way forward. Otherwise, the future of aid for Israel could be, that could be an issue.
If Joe Biden doesn't have Benjamin Netanyahu's ear right now, and apparently the relationship between the two of them has fallen apart, who on the Hill does have his support and listen?
I mean, this is a complicated question, and it speaks to this larger issue of, are we in the middle of an emerging leadership void right now?
All right. Siobhan Hughes, Jesse Byrnes, we appreciate both of you coming on the program this morning. We're going to have you back real soon.